Hey guys, this is Eddie from EddieForLife, and I'm here to help you lead a better life in all areas. I'm going to be talking today about the entrepreneur mindset. What is the right mindset to have in 2021 so that you can succeed in what you're doing and not only survive, but also to thrive in today's ever-changing business environment? So listen up. These are going to be 12 of the most important tips that I can give you. It might be worth your while to stick around a little bit. So let's get into it. Tip number one. The first tip that I have to tell you, which is really important, you got to see in your head what's going on. Are you trying to be a freelancer or do you have the mindset of a boss? And it's two different things, because if you think that you're being an entrepreneur, let's say you're in the creative business and you're a designer or something and you're working by the hour, so you might think that you're an entrepreneur. And it could be that you are in that classical sense because you're working for yourself. But it's a whole different thing from owning a business, from being a boss, from being an owner mentality to being a high-level freelancer, which you might be working by the hour. So the first thing is, just to recap on that, what is your mentality? Do you have the mentality of an owner, of a boss, or the mentality of a guy who just wants to work for himself, but work by the hour, so you're a glorified freelancer? That was tip number one. And that brings me straight into tip number two. Tip number two is perfectionism and micromanagement. In other words, stay away from that. Perfectionism and micromanagement is going to kill you as an entrepreneur. If you have that sickness as a perfectionist, and because of that, you're going to be doing everything in your business, and nobody can do it as good as you. And that's why you're going to be micromanaging everything. Hey, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail really quickly. Things don't work like that in real life. So, to hell with perfectionism. Be aware of that. Cut down on the micromanagement, and remember, be a boss. And as a boss, one thing, in the airlines, the CEO of any big airline doesn't get on every single plane for every flight to check that everything is perfect. He has to rely on everybody working in the airline. And that's how it goes. You have to rely on staff. You have to have staff and make people do what you want them to do. Do not do it yourself. So that was tip number two. Be very careful about perfectionism and micromanagement. And now I'm going to get into tip number three. Okay, so tip number three. As an entrepreneur, you have to ask yourself, what's your added value? What are you bringing to the table as added value in order for you to stand out in this huge world, which gets even bigger every moment because of the internet and everything that's going on? What do you have in your arsenal so that people will notice you, so that you will stand out for your customers, for your clients? And it doesn't matter at what level, whether it's a wholesale level or at a retail level or at a creative level, doesn't matter. What are you bringing to the table? What is your special DNA? And what I'm talking about is, maybe go and listen to Seth Godin. I want to take my hat off to him. He talks about the purple cow. You're going to walk down or drive down to the country, you're going to see millions of cows. You're not going to notice any one of them specifically. However, if you see a purple cow, you're going to notice it and you're not going to forget it. You have to be that purple cow in your area, in your line of work. And remember, that is the most important thing, to stand out, be yourself, have your own DNA. Okay? That was tip number three. Now I'm getting into tip number four. Tip number four. Tip number four is all about what kind of mindset do you have Are you in for the long run, or you want to make a quick buck and you're just thinking short term? And then you're maybe thinking scorched earth policy. In other words, do everything, get a couple of bucks from everybody you can right now, and you know what? And to hell with it, and whatever happens, happens afterwards. That's the wrong mindset to have as an entrepreneur. If you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, if you want to have your own business, your own lifestyle, you have to understand, especially the younger you are, it's about the long haul. This is long term. This isn't for 1 or 2 days. You got to think long term, and when you think long term, that brings some other things. You have to be honest, you have to be trustworthy, you have to bring value to your customers, and you have to really, really be straight in what you do in business, because people will never forget. If you fuck them over, they're not going to forget it, and they're going to wait for you so they can do the same thing to you. So remember, this is the tip. Business and being an entrepreneur, that's the long-term game, not short-term. And that brings me straight into tip number 5, and that's determination. I want to ask you, how determined are you as an entrepreneur? How much do you really want this lifestyle? How much do you want to wake up in the middle of the night worrying about your cash flow, and if you can make, your budget, and if you're going to have enough money to pay salaries? How much do you want it? How much does it really fit you waking up in the middle of the night and not knowing where you're going to make ends meet or how you're going to make ends meet? Entrepreneur mindset is not for everybody. And you know what? You don't have to be an entrepreneur. But if you are an entrepreneur at heart, or at least you think you are, you have to ask yourself one thing. What is my determination here? How determined am I to make this a success? Because without that, and without that inner strength, you won't succeed. So that's been tip number 5. Determination, determination, and determination. Okay. So here's tip number 6, and that's believing too much in your product. You see, you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in your product. However, as an entrepreneur, you have to know if your product is right for your market. And if it's not right, then you got to do something about it. I know too many people who failed miserably in business as entrepreneurs because they believed so much in their product that they weren't willing to do anything about that. That was tip number 6. Believe in your product, but don't believe too much in your product that if things are wrong, you're not going to change anything. And that's going into tip number 7, which might be one of the most important things if you really want to survive and thrive as an entrepreneur, because it's tough. And tip number 7 is you have to be able to change all the time. You got to change your game. You got to be able to adapt. You have to adapt to the changing market. What are you thinking, or what are you doing that you are sure is good, but the market is showing you that maybe it's not? And if that's happening, you got to get into that and start looking at the chain of your product, at your marketing, whatever it is, which you believe so much in that you're not willing to change. So those were 2 tips which are linked together really, really, really strongly. And that's believing too much in your product or in a process or in something you're doing, and not being able to think about changing and not adapting to the market, to your ever-changing environment, especially, in tech. I'm just going to give you a quick example. 20, 30 years ago, cameras were all the rage. And then the smartphones came along with their own cameras. And people who still believed only in cameras, they got screwed. Think about that. Things change. You got to adapt as an entrepreneur. Today, people want something. Tomorrow, they might want something else. How able are you willing to adapt yourself? That's a part of the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. And those were the 2 tips, 6 and 7. Now I'm going to be getting into tip number 8. Okay, this is tip number 8. And this might be the most important tip to help you stay afloat, just to survive, which sometimes you really need. Tip number 8 is being too optimistic in your financial planning. You think things are great, you have the best product, you have the best team around you. Okay, you're a great entrepreneur, but you're too optimistic. It's good to be optimistic and to really think that things are going to be great. However, think optimistic, plan realistic. And that's 2 different things. You have to plan even pessimistic. Don't even think realistic, plan pessimistic. I remember when I was a young entrepreneur in business, and I'm talking about 35 years ago, I had one of my managers. He was an older guy. He went through a lot in life. And every time we would sit around, I'm in the fashion business for almost 40 years, 35 years. And we would sit around, I would say, hey, he would say, how much do you want to order from this in this size, in this color? And I would say, hey, you know what? I think we can do easy. We can sell 30 per size per color in this one. He said, okay, order 8, order 10. I would say, what? We can sell 30, we can sell 40. He would say, no, that's fine. Order what you're sure you're going to sell. And that's 2 different things. And I learned from him because he was right. Don't be too optimistic. In other words, be optimistic as a person. Always, think things are going to be great. That's the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. However, plan realistically or plan even pessimistically. And now that brings me straight into my next tip, which this is tip number 9. And that's going big on the expenses way too soon. I know so many people who lost their business. They did good. They had a good product. They had a good idea. They had a good concept. They were creative. They were doing things the right way. And then what happened? They started getting successful and they went overboard with their expenses. They start having this big office, huge stock rooms, showrooms, or whatever it was. And they couldn't handle it. It was too much. Their cash flow couldn't cover that. So what I'm saying is, do not go overboard with your expenses too soon. In other words, never go overboard, but watch your expenses. Don't start enlarging your expenses too soon. In other words, if you have a small little stock room and it's getting packed, the only time to get another stock room or to get a bigger storage room is when it's really, really affecting your performance. When you don't know what's inside and you can't get to it. Only then should you go and get a bigger storage place. So remember, that was the 9th tip, and that is do not go overboard on your expenses at all, and definitely do not have too many expenses too soon. It's better to suffer a little bit, make do with what you have, and if things continue to get really, really good, okay, go ahead, enlarge your expenses only if they're needed. And that brings me straight into tip number 10, which I am so amazed over the years of coaching other businessmen and entrepreneurs in business and life. And I always see this: profit margin. Listen up. This might be one of the most, every tip here is important, but this is so important to really make money. What is your profit margin? People don't understand enough about how to have the correct profit margin because they don't know how to read numbers. You don't understand margins, you don't understand numbers, you don't know how to read, a profit and loss sheet. Go out, take a short course, have somebody come sit down and teach you if you have to, and learn. Because if your profit margin is too low, you're not going to be making money. You're going to be running around your tail the whole time. And I see that everywhere, And over the years, that's been one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make. Their profit margin is too low. And if your profit margin is too low, you're not going to be making money because things are going to eat up your profit, which you can't foresee. And that brings me straight into my next tip, tip number 11. You're an entrepreneur and you're even successful. You started out, things are looking okay. You're not saving for a rainy day. You made a couple of bucks. You went out and bought that BMW. You went out and bought that Mercedes. You went out and bought that expensive watch and clothes and stuff like that. And you think that what happened until now is going to continue happening tomorrow. Well, you don't know that. And that's maybe one of the best lessons that COVID-19 taught us. Really successful people got kicked in the fucking head. They went down and they got smashed into the concrete because, hey, most of things that happen we have no control over. And that's what COVID-19 showed us. The people who were a little bit more conservative, who planned for the rainy day, they're going to take a hit. They took a hit and they might even take a bigger hit. We're going into 2021. We're in 2021 right now. However, they have on the side enough to tide them over so they can bunker down, cut down their expenses, get rid of all the fat, and at least survive to get to the next day. Because every business has a rainy day. Every single person who's an entrepreneur knows this. There are times when you feel that, hey, you're at the top of the world, and then tomorrow you get smacked across your fucking face, and you get hit so bad that you didn't even see it coming, you know? And sometimes it's not up to you. You could be the best in what you're doing, but things happen, things change overnight. You could be, let's say, a web designer. You could be in the creative business, and you have this company that they've been giving you work, and you've been making money from them. And you've been giving them credit. And all of a sudden something happened on their end, which you couldn't know about because maybe one of their clients went bankrupt or something and fucked them up. And then they're fucked up. They're going to fuck you up. You can't know that. Remember, that's maybe one of the most important tips here. Plan for a rainy day. Don't think that what's going on today and what's been good until now will be the same for tomorrow. Okay, guys, these were the 11 tips until now, and now I'm going to be talking about the 12th tip, the last tip, which I'm going to be talking about in this video, but I'm going to be making more videos in the future. And if you liked what you heard and you thought I'm bringing you some sort of value, let me know in the comments what you think and what is important to you as an entrepreneur, because then I can give you more value and I can teach you and show you all kinds of tips and shortcuts which I picked up in my life as an entrepreneur until today. And this way I can help you succeed. So, another thing, if you like this video, maybe hit the subscribe button, become one of my subscribers. That would, I'd be happy to see you. And if so, then hit that button, the like button. And after the like button, hit that bell button so you'll get notified of my future videos. And the last tip, and that's tip number 12. And I find that it usually happens to people who start succeeding. You start developing tunnel vision. In other words, you go deep, you're doing okay, you're starting to get traction, and then you go into tunnel vision mode and you only see what you're doing. And this happens to so many people, not only in business, in the military, in personal relationships. We don't zoom out to get a higher perspective on what's going on in our business. Because sometimes we're so into it that we forget to look, are we having a good life? Hey, is this the life that I really want? What can I do to become better? How can I improve myself? And that's the most important thing about this tip. What can I continue to do to better myself? And what are my competitors doing? And am I looking enough at what my competitors are doing? Not to copy them. Fuck that. Be your own person. Have your own DNA. Go for it all the way. But do look what the competitors are doing and see maybe there's new trends coming up which you're not aware of. So the last tip is to be very, very aware of tunnel vision. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and again, I hope to have brought you value. And if so, continue watching, and I'll see you in my next videos. Bye bye for now.